What we're going to do today is review some hands from my day one and day two. A couple of day two hands. I didn't get home till late last night, so only a couple of the day twos. But I got some good hands that have some good concepts, I think, that we can talk about today. All right, let's jump in. I didn't have time to run sims because these hands are all like 100 big blinds plus deep, so it takes a while to run them. So we'll be using ODIN because they already have 100 big blind sims. Not perfect, but it will get the job done for us. So, first hand we're going to jump into is actually, I want to talk a little bit about the main event really quick because something I've noticed. So, and I was saying this before the tournament started, and it seems like this year more than any year, like everyone talks about I went to a breakfast poker coaching members breakfast earlier this week. I can't remember what day. There were a lot of members and stuff. Jonathan was there. Some of the coaches were there and stuff. We had a breakfast like Q&A and stuff with some of the members. And the most common question I got asked was, what adjustments do I make for the main event? I don't make any adjustments. I don't make any adjustments at all. I just don't understand, that people are like, oh, it's, you can't be risky in the main event. It's such a good tournament. It's all this, you can't be risky. You got to play small ball. You got to do all this stuff. So you're telling me you're playing the Super Bowl, the biggest tournament of the entire year, and you're going to change your strategy that you play in every other tournament for the highest EV tournament of the year. Does that make sense? It's the reason it's the best tournament is because your EV just gets magnified. You get so much longer to just magnify your EV. You get so many spots to just, pick up those one big blind, one big blind, one big blind of EV spots. Like I don't get the argument of, like the Kansas City Chiefs make the Super Bowl. All right, Kansas City Chiefs make the Super Bowl this year. Okay, maybe not this year because they suck. Last year, okay, Kansas City Chiefs playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Pat Mahomes is their best player. That's their whole offense. You think they're going to go to the Super Bowl? We're going to run the ball 70% of the time. We're not going to throw the ball with Pat Mahomes. We're just going to change our entire strategy. Does that make much sense? I'm sorry if you're not a sports fan. It doesn't make much sense to change your strategy. The other thing, people are so scared to bust out of the main event. It's one tournament. Is it an important tournament? Yeah, it's a cool tournament and stuff, but for my year, it's less than 5% of the total buy-ins I'm going to play for the whole year. It's less than 5%, I'll play probably somewhere between a $250,000. I mean, in a normal year without the pandemic, $250,000 in buy-ins. People just lower their EV so much because they're trying to adjust they're paying to adjust their strategy. What you're paying with is EV. And that literally is what makes the main event so good. And I've noticed it through the first 2 days where there's spots where I'm just getting 2, 3, 4 times the value. No one wants to bet big. People aren't getting value with their good hands. They're checking behind with 6 high and pots because they don't want to bluff off their chips and stuff. So, yeah, it's just food for thought, and for you guys, maybe it's not the main event. Let's say you satellite into a, big online tournament, or you satellite into a WPT tournament or $1,000 live tournament, don't go in changing your strategy. Go in and play the game that and don't just try to be careful and survive. That's not how you make money in tournaments. So, all right. Cool. We're gonna start with this hand, which doesn't seem that exciting on the surface, but I think this spot is one of the most important spots in poker. So, button makes it 2.5x. Anyone folding here pre-flop? I call. 10-9-5, 2 clubs. We check. This player bets 1,000. What are you guys thinking here? So, how do we think about this? Well, first off, folding is not an option here. That's number one. That's You always want to start in spots with like eliminating one of the options if you can. So I think folding is definitely versus the button, not an option here. That's number one. So we got check raise or check call. So we got to weigh the merits of those two options. Obviously, we have a gut shot. We have a club. If we didn't have a club, check raise would not be an option here. Why is folding not an option? Well, we're up against the button, who's raising with ace-4 offsuit, ace-6 offsuit, all this stuff. We got a gut shot. You know, if we hit a pair, we have way too much equity to fold. Yes, we have 8 high, but we have a lot of equity against the opponent's range. They can have ace-king. We can have ace-queen. Like, it's a disaster to fold this hand, calling 1,000 to win 4,600 chips. It's a disaster to fold this hand when a lot of times if we hit a pair of 8s or a pair of 6s, we win the hand. Let alone hit a 7 or 2 clubs. We can bluff later. So folding, not an option. Too much interaction here. If you're folding this flop, you should just fold pre-flop. Can't fold. And if we didn't have a club, we would not check raise. Now, I would rather check raise if I had an overcard to the 10. Why is that? Well, when we check raise and we get called, the player's pretty likely, you know, not all the time, but is going to have a 10 or a 9 a lot. And so having a hand like Jack 7 or Queen 8 or King Jack or something with an overcard to the 10 is going to be really, really helpful because we have more equity against a 10 or a 9. And when we just like check call, if they have ace 4, like they're going to fold that to the check raise, which is fine, but we can call against ace 4 and we have plenty of outs anyways. We have enough equity to just check call. So this isn't a pure check raise. If you're pure check raising this, you're probably getting a little too out of line. I think check raising here is fine, but I think calling is definitely like pretty like reasonable option here as well. For sure, we could check raise more if this is rainbow. Also, another consideration here is we're going to check raise less here because we're 100 big blinds deep. Versus if we were 30 big blinds deep, we're going to check raise a lot more. Why is that the case? Why do we check raise less here at 100 and more at 30? So it all has to do with our value range. There's nothing with preserving chips or anything like that. It has to do with our value range. If we have 30 big blinds deep, we could check raise Jack 10 here and just check raise and go all in with Jack 10 here. And that'd be pretty reasonable. At 100 big blinds, we don't really want to check raise Jack 10 of diamonds here. So we're going to be a little more like 2 pair set heavy, like ace 10, maybe king 10 with a club. You know, queen 10 of diamonds, we're probably not check raising here always at 100 big blinds deep. So if we have less value hands, we have to have less bluffs. Okay? So always start with what's your value range here. And like our value range here, like we don't have 9s pre-flop. We don't have 10s pre-flop. You know, we have 5s, 10-5 suited, 9-5 suited. We don't have 10-5 off. We have 10-9, ace-10, maybe king-10. Like that's our value range. We don't have jacks, queens, kings, aces. I call. If you want to check raise some of the time, that's fine. I don't think you should be check raising all the time, but check raise is fine too. I'd probably make it like, I don't know, 4,500, something like that. Ace of clubs. Check. Interesting spot here. So let's analyze the turn. So the button checks back. Button's a little bit on the tighter side. So how are we starting to range the button here when they check back here on the ace of clubs? So a lot of people are saying the button is capped. So like to a degree, I wouldn't say they're fully capped. Like, but they're getting there. Like they probably don't have a flush, right? They probably don't have a flush. Probably don't have a set. I think that's pretty like safe to assume. They're probably gonna have a pair of 10s a lot, a pair of 9s a lot, maybe like jacks, queens, kings without a club a lot. Although those hands maybe could still bet. You know, pocket 6s, 7s, 8s, pair of 9s. Probably not a flush. And probably not like ace jack, ace queen, or ace king. Maybe they have like ace 8, ace 7, ace 6, ace 4, ace 3, ace 2. So I think some of the weaker aces are reasonable to check back if they don't have a club. I think that would make some sense. How does the ace interact with us because we check our entire range? How does the ace interact with us on the turn? So like we're gonna check call with like 10x, 9x, 5x. We're We're going to check call some ace highs for sure. Now, the ace of clubs on the board, like if we have a hand like ace jack, we didn't 3-bet. We have ace 8 with the 8 of clubs, ace 7 with the 7 of clubs, ace x of hearts. We'll have some ace x for sure. Not a ton, but we have some aces. Decent amount of flushes, too, that don't check raise. So we're going to have some flushes as well. So once like the cutoff, once this player checks back, obviously we're going to have some flushes. So it's always important in these spots. Like, this is my favorite spot in poker. These button big blind spots where it goes bet, call, check, check. So it's always important, I think, to set up the river in your head before, like, the river card even comes out. And as you get really good at this, you'll be able to do this in, like, 2 seconds. It just takes a lot of practice. 9 of hearts. Okay. So how does the 9 change things? So this is, like, probably one of the more difficult spots in poker to play because there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of things going on here. And so this becomes like a pretty difficult spot to play well. It's an easy spot to play poorly. Let's put it that way. But it's a tough spot to play really well. But there's a way you can organize your thinking here that will help you play this spot better. We have a couple of hand examples today. We'll do the next hand I'll do, which is kind of out of order, is like a very similar spot to this. So, all right. So the first thing we want to think about here is how the river changed things. Okay. So the 9 of hearts is not a blank. Okay. It's not a deuce. It's not a 3. It's not a 4. This is far from a blank. Okay. Number 1 is does the button improve on the 9? Yeah. So the button's going to very reasonably, the button could have a hand like king 9, queen 9, jack 9, 9-8 offsuit, some suited 9s. So the button can have some 9s. We have a lot of 9s, though, too, because we check call a lot of 9s, too. So both of us improve the trips a lot, right? I think that's easy to understand. Both players can have trips here. Okay? Now, we got to think about our value range on this river. So let's just walk through the different hand hand classes that we have. So let's start with top of the range. All right. So let's say flushes. Okay. Flushes and full houses. So we could have I think it's we could have ace 9 here for sure. Okay. Ace 9's a hand very easily we could have. Our opponent can't have ace 9 either, probably. Maybe we have 9-5 every once in a while, but probably not often. We probably check raise that mostly. But we have ace 9 for a full house, and then we have a lot of flushes, right? And not really many full houses. So what's the goal when we have a full house or a flush here? What's our goal? This is the kind of easy way to start to think about it. Not just extract value. It's to get a lot of chips in the pot. Yeah, we want to play a big pot. Maybe we don't want to get all in with a flush for sure. We probably don't want to get in 90K chips here because we would run into aces or something a lot here, or ace 9. But we don't want to get in pot. We want to get in, multiples of the pot or something. Okay. Next category I would say would be a pair of aces. Okay. So let's say we have ace 8 with the ace 8 of clubs or something. We have a pair of aces, a decent amount, right? Not a ton, but we have some pair of aces. Do we want to value bet with those aces? Do we want to check? What's kind of what do we want to do with a pair of aces here? Is 10x strong enough to value bet? Probably not on a 9. If it wasn't a 9, for sure 10x could bet to get called by 9x. But it gets pretty hard to get value some from a 10 here. But I didn't think it was going to be that unreasonable. Okay. So that's kind of one. Before you even think about bluffing, you want to think about your value range and kind of what you're trying to accomplish here. Okay. So let's go to the next step. Okay. The next step here is, so let's our really good hands, flushes and full houses. When we bet really big. So let's say we bet like pot size or bigger. Okay. What hands are called? What are we getting called by? So let's say we bet like we have 7-6 of clubs. Let's say we bet 6,000 here. What hand is gonna what's the opponent's like most likely hands are gonna call with? A 9. Awesome. Cool. Maybe an ace. Yeah. So a 9's gonna call a lot when we bet 6,000. Like that's the hand that's gonna call us a lot, and then some aces like ace 6, ace 7, ace with a club or something like that. Perfect. Awesome. Good. When we have a full house, kind of same thing. When we have an ace, what's the most likely hand to call us? We're probably going to bet smaller with an ace. Maybe we bet like 2,000, 3,000, something like that. Probably like a 10, right? Perfect. And so like this is kind of how we're working through this process. Yeah, we need him to call with worse ace X, but it's kind of like he can't really call us with a worse ace here because we don't have ace jack. Maybe we do. I guess we could have ace jack with a jack of clubs. Like that's the only ace we can have that can get a value bet in here. Like I'm not saying we don't bet ace 7, but he can't call us with a worse ace because we chop if we have a worse ace than that. Okay. So I want to go back to these flushes hands. Okay. So we say if we have like 7-6 of clubs, we want to get a lot of money in this pot, right? If we bet big, we bet like 6,000. He's probably going to call us with a 9 or an ace, right? What happens if we check with a flush? What hands will the button value bet? If we have a flush here, let's say again we have the 7-6 of clubs. What hands are going to value bet if we check? A 9 is going to value bet. He's going to value bet a 9. And maybe he value bets some of his aces. Maybe not if he's really tight, but, he'll probably value bet like ace jack or something if you check that back. Maybe he'll value bet, I don't know, ace 8, but people are pretty tight. But he's going to value bet a 9. All right. So if he calls us with a 9 if we have a flush, and he bets a 9 if we check, what should we do with a lot of our flushes? We should check raise. And why should we check raise? We should check raise because the calling range is the same as his value betting range. Now, they're not exactly the same, but he's not going to raise with a 9 if we bet 4,600. He's not going to raise, but if we check, now he bets like 3,000 with a 9, let's say. Say he has king 9. He bets 3,000. Now we make it 15,000. Now we can get 3x the pot in on the river. You see how this works? Plus, maybe he bluffs on the river. Maybe he bluffs as well. So whatever like the calling range is equal to their betting range, that's like big for us. Now let's change it. Let's change the situation now. Let's say instead of the 9 of hearts, it was the deuce of hearts. Okay? Change this river card. This is the deuce of hearts now instead of the 9 of hearts. How does that change things with our flushes? When we bet big, he's probably going to call us with an ace, a 10 sometimes, maybe like pocket jacks with a club. He's going to value bet way less. When we check now with our flushes, he's going to check back a lot because he doesn't have he didn't improve to a lot of value bets on the river. So the 9 is that's the key thing here is the 9 gives this player a lot of value bets on the river. And so that's the key part of this river with playing our really big hands here. So that's kind of I think we talked about the flushes and full houses here. Now, what about if we have a 9 ourselves? How should we play a hand here if we have king 9 or queen 9 or jack 9 or any 9, for example? Should we ever check? Should we always bet? How should what type of sizing should we use? It's when the calling range is equal to the betting range, we are better off check raising if, I'm going to add a statement, if our hand is strong enough to check raise. So now, if we have a 9 here, let's say we have 9-8. Is 9-8 strong enough to check raise the river here for value? I would say no, because we're going to run into like Jack 9, Queen 9, King 9. Way too much here. Do we have any bluffs if we check raise here? If we're playing like in theory, yes. Depends on, I probably wouldn't check raise bluff here much. The reason I probably wouldn't check raise bluff here a ton here against weaker players is because what's their value betting range when we bet? It's a 9. Are they going to fold people think this is kind of important for like live poker playing against weaker players. People like to think about their hands in terms of the absolute value of their hand relative to the relative value of their hand. So like when they bet here with a 9, 3 of a kind is a really, really good hand, right? And I don't like to make people fold really, really good hands. I like to check raise bluff river. I check raise bluff here when I think the player is going to make thin value bets. You want to check raise rivers when they're value betting thin. Most weak players don't value bet thin. If your opponent is not betting this river with, say, ace 7, then you shouldn't really check raise that much because their range is pretty polarized. It's like a 9. And I'm not really in the game of trying to make people fold trips. I'm in the game of trying to make people fold second pair, third pair, a pair of 10s like here. That's like how I think about that. Okay. So if we have a 9, we want to bet always. Why? Well, we want to get called by an ace. If we check, an ace is going to check back sometimes, especially against like these weak passive players. They're probably going to check back an ace here a lot. That's a disaster. So we probably want to bet pot, something like that. I don't know. Somewhere around like pot, maybe even if you want to get greedy against like a sticky player that's never going to fold an ace, you can go a little bit bigger. But that makes a lot of sense. If we have a 9, we probably want to bet pretty big. The reason we always bet with a 9 is because we can't check raise it. Okay? And if we check, what's this player going to bet with? They don't really value bet much. Like they could have a 9, but we have one of the 9s. And like they're going to check back with an ace a lot. So like I don't trust this player to value bet an ace enough for me. So like I'm going to do the betting myself because it's a disaster when this player checks back an ace. And they probably don't bluff enough. So there's not a lot of value in like, also too, like if we check raise here, they're probably not calling with an ace, right? So like there's not a lot of value in like check raising a 9 here very often because we block what hands are going to call us. What they're going to call us with is a 9 here. And we have a 9 in our hand. Okay. Now we have this hand. 8 of spades, 6 of clubs. We have 8 high. Can't win the pot. Bluffing seems fine. What type of sizing should we use here then? Well, when we bet here on the river, we have like some small bets with a pair of aces. So like we're going to bet small, like half pot, maybe 2,000 with some aces. And we have some really big bets with a 9. Right? Now, what 9s are most likely for the button to have? How is the button most likely to have a 9 here? Always, always, always start with offsuit hands. There's more combinations of offsuit hands. So how is the button more likely to have a 9? They're going to have king 9 offsuit, queen 9 offsuit, jack 9 offsuit. They don't really have 10-9 offsuit. Maybe, but probably not. 9-8 offsuit, likely. But some people fold 9-8 offsuit on the button because they're really tight. But like they don't fold king 9. So, and then like the weaker 9s they're going to have are going to be suited 9s. So like for them to have a 9 that's not jack 9 or better, it's going to be like 9-7 suited, 9-6 suited, 9-4 suited if they're crazy. So with the lower cards, remember when we bet big here, what are we getting called by? An ace or a 9, right? So I've looked at this sim already because I was studying this hand from day one. So I'm kind of like, this isn't everything I was thinking about in game. A lot of it was, but like I learned some things already on this sim. Mostly that we're supposed to check a lot of our flushes here. I wasn't checking my flushes here in game. But here in terms of bluffing, What cards are more relevant here? Or how is our 8 and a 6 relevant here? What's the relevant? So when we're bluffing, we want to block calls and unblock folds. So how does our 8-6 stack up kind of there? So we block 9-8 offsuit. I think that's important. Yep. So like there's two really key hands that we block here as well. Blocking like ace-8 and ace-6 are also pretty relevant here, right? Ace-8 and ace-6, ace-6 probably are not folding. But in terms of like for our really big bet bluffs, what cards are best to bet really big with then? Given what we just talked about. This is like a really, really, really complicated high-level spot. And like this is one of the more important spots in No Limit Hold'em, I think. So we're not really concerned about blocking flushes, like a little bit, but probably doesn't have a flush anyways. So hands with like a king, a queen, or a jack at them are probably pretty good for bluffing pretty big. All right? Because the button to have a 9, it's probably going to be king 9, queen 9, or jack 9. So having like a king, queen, or a jack is pretty good for your big bets because you block the most combinations of 9x. And this 8-6 maybe is good for like a smallish bet because you block more of the ace-x hands. So, all right, let's, instead of me rambling, let's go to the sim and just kind of look here and see if we can piece together some of these ideas. Oh, we're going to have to wait the 20 seconds. All right, you have 20 seconds here. So let's just actually take a look here at the buttons range. So if you look here, here's the buttons range. So here's their offsuit 9s. They have ace 9, king 9, queen 9, jack 9, 10 9. And then, you know, they can have those offsuit. Here's 9-8 suited, 9-7, 9-6, 9-5 suited. But they don't have hands like, you know, 9. Here's 9-7 off, 9-8 off. They don't have 9-6 off. They don't have 9-5, 9-4. You know, they don't have the worst offsuit 9s. So 10-9 of clubs. We check. Button plays, you know, we're not going to look at too much in the strategy. They do check sometimes like 20%. They do check a lot. They have all these offsuit aces that miss. They have all these offsuit kings that miss. So it's kind of a hard board to bet their entire range. They bet small, like 33%. And here's the 8-6 off. So you can see, if we don't have a club, we never check raise. If we have a club, we can sometimes check raise. Pretty simple, you know, 50-50 if you want to check raise here. Like, check raise is fine. Definitely fine. It's a big check raise, too. If you look here, like, they made it 2 big blinds. The actual preferred sizing of the check raise here is 10 big blinds. 10 bigs. So really, really, really big check raise when we do check raise. Okay. Here's ace 10. Not even a pure check raise here. Mostly check raising, but not pure. Here's king 10. Check raising a lot more when you have the king of clubs. Here's queen 10. Really only check raising when you have the queen of clubs. Jack 10 sometimes. Queen 10 mostly just doing it with a backdoor flush draw. So, like, if you notice here, we only check raise like, you know, 15%. If we were shorter, we'd check raise a lot more. Okay. All right. Here's 9-5, 10-9, 5s, etc. So we call. Ace of clubs. We check. And let's just take a look here at our opponent's strategy. So let's look here. So, like, here's ace-king from our opponent. They bet that. Ace-queen, ace-jack. They're betting that. Here's ace-10. They're betting. Ace-9, ace-8, ace-7. Like, they're betting. They check back with an ace sometimes. Like, especially the weaker ones. Like ace-5, ace-6, ace-7. You know, they check back with some of those. Here's, like, kings, queens, and jacks. They're supposed to bet. Most people probably don't. Here's a pair of 9s, king 9, queen 9, jack 9, 9-8 suited, 9-7. What do they check back with? Mostly a pair of 9s. Sometimes a pair of 10s, probably a lot. People probably don't bet king 10, queen 10, jack 10 here. 10-8 here enough. Pretty cool that you can still bet like a hand like jack 10 offsuit here. So even on the flush completer. You can still bet quite a bit using 2 sizings here. Small size, big size. We can look here. Here's flushes. If you look, pretty much always betting. Couple of flushes that check, but pretty much always betting with their flushes. So we're going to go check, check, and get to the meat of this problem. And the river is the 9 of hearts. Okay, so we got, let's say we have two sizings here, really. There's a massive, like, this sizing, which is kind of stupid. I've told you guys about, it's one thing I don't like about this program, but it works really well for what we're trying to do here with big blind. So we have, like, two sizings here, let's say. We have, like, a 33%, which is the block, like, a 75% bet. You know, I'd probably use, like, a pot size bet, and then, like, there's this big over bet that's, we'll just ignore that. So let's look at the 33% here. So what hands are we betting small with? Here's ace jack. Here's ace 10, ace 8, ace 7, ace 8, ace 7, ace 6. So when it's full here, that means we always do it with this hand. So ace 6 of diamonds. We always just bet 33% here. Sometimes we bet small with a 9 here as well. So you see here, like 9-8, sometimes bet small. 9-7, sometimes bet small. 9-6, sometimes bet small. Okay? Sometimes we bet small, and then we have some bluffs, like king 4 diamonds. We just bet small with it. King 3, queen 4, queen deuce. You know, sometimes we just bet small. Okay, what about the big bet? 75% pot. Well, do you guys see the difference here? What do we bet big with? A 9, king 9, queen 9, jack 9, jack 9, queen 9, king 9. You know, we bet big with the 9. Okay. And what do we do with our flushes? Well, we check a lot. We check a lot with our flushes. Why? Well, let's take a look here. If we bet 75% of the pot, what does our opponent call with? Well, they call with ace 6. They call with ace 5. They call with queen 9. They call with jack 9. They call with 9-8. They call with 9-7. They call with pair of aces. They even fold ace 8. Pretty cool. They call sometimes with a pair of 10s. But most of their calling range is a pair of aces, trip 9s. Right? You guys see that here? What if we check? Let's go back. Say it's the 9 of hearts still. Now, if we check, what's their betting range? What do they do with ace 8? They check. What do they bet with? They bet with a 9. The betting range is almost the same as the calling range. It's pretty much like, yeah, they have a couple flushes here. But now they bet, say that they bet 2/3 here. They bet 7 big blinds. Do we play it safe? We got 7 high flush draw. What do? We have a 7 high flush draw. What do? We don't call. We raise. They bet 7 big blinds. We make it 44 big blinds. We make it huge. We go, these are all flushes. Flush, 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 flush. Full house, full house. Flush. What do we check raise bluff with here? Here's 10-8 with the 8 of clubs. Here's 10-7 with the 7 of clubs sometimes. 10-6 with the 6 of clubs sometimes. Queen of clubs 5. King of clubs 5. 5-4. Like pair and a flush blocker or something. Yeah. So this is how you get a lot of money in the pot. This is how you get like 30, 40 big blinds in this pot on the river. Okay? Now let's look at a different river. Instead of the 9 of hearts, let's say it's the deuce of hearts. Now what are we going to do with our flushes? We already talked about this before, and I haven't looked at this, but I'm assuming we're going to mostly bet with our flushes now. We're going to check sometimes. Maybe we check like 15% of the time, 20% of the time. But now we're mostly going to bet. Why? Because they're not going to bet if we check. Yeah, they'll bet an ace, but it's not like they're not going to bet call with an ace anyways. Like some of our flushes are still checking. But like we're betting a lot more with our flushes. Here's king high flush, queen high flush, queen high, jack high flush. You know, we check sometimes with a flush still. We still check sometimes. But let's like also too, like we're betting like massive sometimes. Like this is 30 big blinds or something we're betting here. This is like some really big bets. When we check now, on this turn, like what do they value bet? Like here's a 9 checks, but like here's the problem with checking a flush in this spot. All right, how many people do you think bet queen of diamonds, 10 of spades here on the river? So like the solver checks here with a flush a lot. But yeah, every 10 they're supposed to value bet 10-3. Like they're supposed to value bet with 10-3. They're supposed to value bet with every single 10, every single ace. Like people check back ace 3 here a lot. The charcoal gray means it's not, that it's a hand they don't have. If like here, like gray means they don't have that hand. This is like a weighted average of how often they have that hand. So like it's a disaster. Like people just don't value bet thin enough here to incentivize us, because like here they bet. Now we like lay into them. You see here, like now we're just shoving. We just shove for 95 big blinds now because they're capped. They didn't improve on the deuce of hearts, so now like our flushes just go ape shit. It's kind of funny. We just shove for 100 big blinds. They call 17% of the time. They fold a lot. Yes, but they still have to call sometimes. They still have to call sometimes with an ace. Why? Because most of their range is an ace. There's not really a way around it. No, they bet king, king, jack, jack on the turn. So that's the problem with checking on this river, is because people don't value bet thin enough. And that makes it really tough for us to go for a check raise. So let's look at one or two more things, and then we'll just look at one more hand that's a very similar spot. And then maybe we'll go through a couple hands quickly. So in terms of bluffing, so if you look here, we're actually checking like 74% of the time here on this river. We actually check a lot. And the reason is like we only really want to value bet an ace or a 9. We're not value betting any of our 10x here. And so we don't really get to bluff a ton because of that. And if you see here, where do we want to bluff the most here? Like here's queen jack, wants to bluff a lot. Here's king highs that actually want to bluff a lot with king highs, because we block 9x with these king highs and queen highs and stuff. There's some blocker stuff going on here. I have 8-6 here. It's kind of weird. Like it checks a lot. I wouldn't have checked 8 high here, but I'll just show you what happened in game. I bet 4,600. What do you guys do on the river here with 10x? We bet 75%. And here's 10x. Mostly folds, even with a club. Like jack 10 with the club. Here's 10-6. The weaker ones call. Why do these ones call? Why does 10-5, 10-4, 10-3 call? Sorry, not 10-5. Why do we call it 10-4 and 10-3? We fold 10-8, 10-7, 10-6. Because we bluff with an 8-7-6 jack, queen, king. So, like, you got to think about, like, the where the bluffs are coming from. Well, they're probably going to come from, like, a queen, a jack, a 7, or an 8, something like that. So that's why these 3s are really, really good. 4s, 5s. So that's why ace-8 folds even here a lot. Look at this. Ace-queen just folds. Ace-queen of diamonds. How many of you are folding ace-queen of diamonds on the river here? I'm not. 0% chance I folded that on the river. But this just shows you in terms of, like, you need to stop thinking about the absolute value of your hand and think about the relative. When we bet large here, we're betting 75% of the pot. Ace-queen is a bluff catcher. Our range is like 9x, essentially. And, like, the queen is pretty bad blocking some of the river bluffs. So king 5 calls before. Why? Because we don't bluff that much with king high. We bluff some, but it also blocks like 9-5 and some stuff. So Again, not an exciting hand, not a big pot, but a really important kind of river spot. Okay, so this is from yesterday. Tight passive player. I haven't seen the sim for this one yet, so I'll tell you what I'm thinking here in game, and then you guys. So I had studied this hand the night before. This 8-6 hand I studied the night before. So that's kind of like comes in here. All right, we call. Nothing exciting there. King, queen, 5. Check, check. Deuce of clubs. Flush comes in. Maybe against like an aggressive player, I think maybe it makes a little sense to check turn because like a lot of their calling range on the turn is like a queen, and we have a queen. But I'm betting. I bet 5,000 in a 6,800 because of like if there wasn't a flush card, I'd bet a lot bigger. But because it's the flush card, he calls. River's the queen of hearts. Okay. What are we thinking here on the river? So very similar spot. So how do we work through this? What's our value range on the river here? Well, we're going to have some king X that bets the turn. So let's go back to the turn. We're going to check here a decent amount. Like maybe we have like king jack with the jack of clubs, king 10 with the 10 of clubs. Like we'll have a little bit of king X, but not much. Because like a lot of my king X is probably going to check the turn again on the flush card. Okay. But I have some king X for sure. But we're going to have flushes for sure. We're definitely going to have some flushes. We don't really have a lot of queens, right? We don't really bet 5,000 on the turn with a queen. All right. Obviously, what's our goal with this hand? We want to get a lot of money into the pot, right? If we bet big, let's say pot, all right, let's just say if we bet pot here, what's his calling range? Most people are flushes, like reasonable. This guy could have a flush, maybe. You know, he's tight passive. His calling range is like flushes, queen X. Some people are saying king X. If he has a king, he's probably not folding it. But I don't think he has a king very often because he probably just bets the flop with a king, right? What's more likely? What's more likely here when he checks back? He has a king or he has a queen? He has a queen more often, right? Okay, he's going to have a queen more often. So when we bet big, he calls us with a queen, and he might just call with like 7-6 of clubs. If we bet pot, he probably just calls with a flush, unless it's like the nut flush, right? What happens if we check? What does he do with ace queen on the river? What does he do with queen jack on the river? What does he do with flushes on the river? He bets the same hands that are going to call a big bet anyways. Right? So what should we do here with queen 5? Just check raise. I checked. He checked back. He had like pocket 7s with the 7 of clubs. Cool. Maybe I could have bet 4,000. Yippee. I don't want to win 4. I'm not here to win 4,000 chips with queen 5. I'm here to win 60,000 chips with queen 5. I'm happy to forego 4,000 chips, 10 times for when I just get a check raise when he bets 12,000, I'm going to make it 50,000. And then he has trips. Trip is a really good hand. He has a flush. Do you think he's ever folded a flush on this river? No. Do you think he's folded ace queen? Probably not, especially if he has the ace of clubs. He's never folding. So I haven't looked this up, so let's take a look here and see. Now, what would we do here if we had king jack? Sometimes he bluffs. Sometimes. So some people are saying, why not bet 2K? The reason I don't bet 2K is because I don't trust this player to raise with a queen. Some people are like, too many people just call here with queen 10 if I bet like 3,000 chips. And that's a disaster too. So we had like king jack, I'd bet small. I'd try to target pocket 8s, pocket 7s, those types of hands. What if we had a queen? With a queen, I'd bet small sometimes. And then I'd bet like medium to largest, like 12,000, 10,000, something like that to target like king X, pocket jacks type hands. So let's take a look here really quick. Button cutoff, hijack, low jack, big blind, single raise pot. Board is king 5, queen. Yeah, I don't go for the bet 3-bet very much because people with value because people don't raise enough. So I don't think it's that worthwhile. It's great with your medium strength hands. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if this villain had a flush here. Like, makes some sense to check back with like 7-6 of clubs on the flop or something. I don't think it's unreasonable. They probably should just bet range, but people don't. We check. You see here, like, they're supposed to always bet. They don't. That's fine. It's going to make the sim a little bit weird. But if you see here, like, there's some, like, non-zero checks here with flushes and stuff for sure. Like, it's kind of going to be a weird sim because they check back some. They don't, like, check much, but it will work out here. Turn, deuce of clubs. Yeah, you roll the small number. So we check a lot here. Here's queen 5. We mostly bet. You know, here's like some we bluff. I'm not gonna spend too much time here. Here's a king. We bet small. So we bet like 5 big blinds here. Perfect. They got our bet size here. He calls. River's the queen of hearts. Please check queen 5. Damn it. I guess we're not getting enough value bets. I don't know. Let's see here. Any full houses here that checks? Here's pocket 5s. All right, similar hand here. Pocket 5s, checking. So with 5s, it's kind of nice because we unblock the queen, right? We unblock the queen, so make it more likely as a queen. Here's, what's another one? Pocket deuces. We check a lot with deuces. Here's like king X. So we bet small with like king jack, king 10, king 9. The really big bets come from like flushes. So like I would do this with 9-4 clubs. I don't feel comfortable check raising 9-4 clubs here. Yeah, it's like 33, 150. This is kind of stupid, like these sizings. But like when we check here, like you see here, there's not a lot of like there's some flushes here for sure, and there's some queen X here. So like, as we put more queen X in the range here, and we put more flushes in the range here, checking becomes very, very, very viable. Like I'm fine with my answer to like check the queen 5 here. I think it's a reasonable answer, and I think we're thinking about it correctly. As you see here, like we have 2 bet sizes. King X wants to bet small. Like queen 7 wants to bet, you know, this is a flush. So I think the thinking works out here. I think we're fine with the answer. This sim is a little weird, especially too because we're not really in solver land because he checked the flop. I think he's going to have a queen here a lot. And I think check raise makes a lot of sense here on this river. Yeah, the only thing is your queen is blocking him to have a queen for sure. So like he's probably going to check back with a king mostly, which kind of sucks. Like when we check here, we check like they're checking back king 10, king 9. So that's maybe part of it here is that they check back a lot of the king X here. And that's, they don't have, I guess, that many queens because like queen jack off, queen 10 off. They don't have a lot of suited. They have a king way more often, which makes, that's, I guess, part of the reason here is that they're just not going to have enough. Depends how often they check back flush draws. If this player was like the button or the cutoff, they're going to have a lot more queen X. Yeah, that's why they prefer deuce, deuce, and 5-5 to check raise. 100% because it makes the queen available, the value bet available. So that was kind of a, you know, but the way to think about it, though, I think is still relevant for sure. All right. Got like 10 minutes or something. Let's look at some fun hands. All right. Look at this one. Actually, no. I want to look at this one. We open jacks. This is on day 1. Loose spazzy player 3 bets from the big blind. What do you guys want to hear with jacks? Call. Good. What's our 4 bet range look like? Probably aces, kings, ace, king suited. I would flat here with ace, king suited a lot. And then like some weaker suited aces, like ace 8 suited and stuff. We'll take a look at the pre-flop ranges. Call. 10, 9, 5, rainbow. 4,500. What do we do? Fold, call, raise. If we raise, what size do we raise? I prefer call. I think raising is good in solver land. What's the problem with raising though in this type of situation? I don't know how often even this loose spazzy player is going to find the 3-bet bluffs with ace 10 off, 10 8 suited, jack 10 suited. And so like those are the hands we're trying to get value from. So like sure, raising is I think reasonable, but it gets a little dicey, I think. All right, we call king of clubs. He bets 11,000. He has 21,000 back. What do we do here? We got pair and a gut shot, right? Can't fold, right? Can't fold a pair and a gutter, right? Pure fold. 0% call. Why am I folding? Who's the king a better card for? So we call the flop, right? What's our range for calling the flop? We call it with ace 10, king 10, queen 10, jack 10 suited, queen jack, king queen, pocket 10s, pocket 9s, pocket 5s. I'm not raising with my sets. 10, 9 suited. We call it pocket queens. Yeah. Okay. How does the king interact with our range? Forget the big blinds range. Forget the big blinds range for a second. How does the king interact with our calling range on the flop? It's a pretty good card for us. Why is it a good card for us? Because our weakest calls, which are going to be like king jack, king queen, like ace king suited, ace queen suited, like a lot of our hands improved. And it's clubs. We're going to have ace jack of clubs, ace queen of clubs, 10x of clubs. Like we have a lot of hands. Jack 10 improved, queen 10 improved, jack 9 suited improved, queen 9 suited improved. Like really, really, really good card for us. Player probably shouldn't be betting all that often. They can bet some for sure. This player also is going to have like king queen. This player's not folding king queen if I do anything here. Pure fold. Do you think the solver pure folds? Or do I just fold because it's, people don't 3-bet enough from the big blind? Okay, we'll look at the ranges really quick. Raise. Fold. Here's the big blind 3-betting range. So it's like 10s, jacks, queens, kings, aces, ace, queen suited, some king, queen suited, some of the suited aces. Look at where do the bluffs come from? Look at where the bluffs come from here. Right in here. How does that connect with this flop? Pretty damn good. It's a really good flop for the 3-better. The 3-bet. Here's our 4-betting range. Aces, sometimes kings. Look at ace king. You call a lot. 4-bet a little bit of these suited aces. You don't have to 4-bet much. Notice here you can still fold some of these suited connectors and small pairs, even mix fold sometimes. So big blind gets a range bet. Okay? Keep that in mind. Like, why does a big blind get a range bet? Well, where do they bluff from? Jack 10 suited, Jack 9 suited, 10 9 suited, Queen Jack, Queen 10. Their bluffs all connect. When your bluffs connect, that's when you get a bet range. So they bet like, this guy bet pretty big, like 2/3. Yeah, he bet like 5 into 7 or like 45. So he bets pretty big here. Yeah, jacks sometimes just shove. Jacks and queens. Sometimes you're just like, YOLO. I'm all in. Not really my thing, but, it's kind of a thing. So, like, yeah, raising's a thing, but I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm all behind. I don't trust my opponent to be bluffing enough pre-flop to be YOLO shoving jacks. So, I call. Not much else to do. King of clubs. Look at how respectful now the strategy is. They check 60%, but what do they bet with mostly? Aces, ace, king, queens and jacks mostly check. Sometimes they bet, king, queen bets. They bluff some. So they bet pretty big again. Boom, pure fold. You don't fold jack 10 though, because you have a pair. You get extra outs. Now you just shove all in with like these hands. Now, like, because he doesn't have much behind. Sizing was a little different in game. Maybe it was a little smaller sizing in game, but like, just fold ace queen. You fold, all this stuff. You call with the hands that are really good, like queen jack and tens and stuff. So pure fold. Don't be afraid to fold. Any other cool hands? This is kind of a fun one. I'm not going to go in depth in this. I just call with jacks. This player calls. Big blind calls. We're playing super deep. This guy was pretty good. I checked 6-3 deuce rainbow. I think betting's fine, but I think checking is also fine. This is not really a good flop for my flatting range. And these two players can just have the nuts. This guy piles. I'm already pretty scared here. What would you guys do here if under the gun check called? What would you do with jacks? I'd probably fold if under the gun called here. I'd probably just fold. Like, this range calling 5,200 here is pretty strong. This bet's pretty damn strong. Ace. Check, check. 9. What do you do now? Do you want to check call bluff catch against a loose passive fish? These are not the type of players you want to bluff catch against. Check fold is better than check call here. But we can bet for value. He's going to have like 10s and 8s and 7s, a pair of 6s. I don't know. He's loose passive. He's probably just going to call us. We bet 5,000. I'm folding 100% of the time for a raise here. If he raises me on the river here, it's pocket 9s, like always, or like 5-4. So if he called, I won. Like probably 8s or something. Stop, check, calling against loose, passive fish that don't bluff. You want to make more money in poker? That's how you make more money. You don't check call against loose, passive fish. Like, I wasn't even happy calling the flop, but like, I can't fold flop because he's just going to blast with like pocket 8s on the flop, even though it's probably not good. Is this a 3-bet pre-flop? What do you guys do pre-flop? Does anyone fold here pre-flop? Versus like 2.5x. I wouldn't hate if someone folded here. I think folding is not the worst option. I think call is fine as well. I think 3-bet. I'll show you the ODIN. So these charts are based off of 2.5x. So high jack, low jack, 3-bet, 100. Not a 3-bet pre-flop, huh? Raise. Is that 3-bet? I'm colorblind. I can't tell. 200 big blind effective, change it? Sure. This would probably fold more at 200 big blinds, to be completely honest. It's already folding like 40% of the time at 100 big blinds. It probably is going to fold more at 200 big blinds. Like, but these guys are all like, I had a bunch of tight players behind me. Yeah, we were like 200 effective. For sure. But definitely not 3-betting like this stuff. There's no chance that gets in there. We got 4 players left to act, but these players were all really tight. I'd probably call. I'd probably never fold here. I mixed for like a 50% 3-bet. Whenever you're in like not the cutoff or the button, every hand's going to mix some 3-bets. Why? Because look, you're 3-betting 9%, calling 5. Like you 3-bet like 2/3 of your hands and call a third of your hands. Because you don't want to go multi-way out of position. You want to play heads up. You're even 3-betting like 6s sometimes, 7s, 8s, 9s, 10-9 suited. Like every single hand other than deuces and 3s, mixed 3-bet. That's why people like don't 3-bet enough. Like in the main, I've been opening so wide because no one 3-bets. Literally, I've been 3-bet like twice in 2 full days in 20 hours of live poker. I've been 3-bet literally 2 or 3 times, and I'm not exaggerating. That's pathetic. Because it's the main event. You got to play small ball. You got to just call with pocket queens and see a flop. I mean, it wouldn't change much if I played day 1F. All the days are soft. Everyone, so. Yeah, we 3-bet. We bet, calls. Got a pot control, right? Got a pot control, right? No, we bet big. Go for value. Bad call by this guy. Call me with ace queen off on the flop. Pure folds. Ace queen off here. Pure folding on the flop. All right, guys. Have a good one. Good luck.